5 brothers, 1 ship, an unfathomable loss. This is the incredible story of the sinking of USS Juneau and the Sullivan brothers. Growing up in rural Iowa, 5 Sullivan brothers always knew they were destined for greatness. Thomas, born in 1895, Francis, George, Joseph, and Madison. The boys grew up working on their family farm with their parents. But while most people would find joy in the simple life of farming, the Sullivan boys had bigger dreams. They dreamed of adventure, of seeing the world. And when war broke out between the United States and Japan in 1941, the brothers felt it was their calling to join the Navy and fight for their country. They enlisted together in January 1942, and to everyone's surprise, were accepted to serve on the same ship, the USS Juneau. For any normal family, this would be cause for celebration. But the Sullivan family saw it as a potential disaster waiting to happen. You see, having all 5 boys on the same ship meant that if something happened to the Juneau, their entire family could be wiped out in an instant. The boys' mother, Ellen, tried everything she could to keep them off that ship, but nothing she said or did could convince the determined young men to leave their posts. So Ellen made a deal with her boys. If they would agree to write home every day, keeping her informed about their whereabouts, she would stop trying to get them transferred. The brothers agreed without hesitation, and soon they were sailing away into the Pacific Ocean. It wasn't long before the USS Juneau came under attack by Japanese forces. The ship was part of a convoy carrying troops and supplies to Guadalcanal, an island that had become a strategic battleground between the Allies and the Japanese. On November 13, 1942, as the convoy approached the island, they were met with heavy fire from Japanese forces. The escorting destroyers quickly engaged the enemy, giving the larger ships like the Juneau time to unload their cargo. But then one of the destroyers was hit and forced to retreat, leaving the Juneau and its convoy vulnerable to attack. As the Japanese closed in, the crew of the Juneau began returning fire, but it wasn't enough. At 1:45 p.m., a torpedo from a Japanese submarine slammed into the starboard side of the Juneau, causing massive damage to the ship. Explosions erupted as ammunition stored below deck ignited. Fire ripped through the upper decks, sending thick black smoke billowing into the air. In the chaos, the Juneau split in two, sank in just 18 minutes. Of the 1,000 sailors on board, only 10 survived the initial blast. Among those who didn't survive was the Sullivan family. All 5 brothers died that day, along with their 700 shipmates. News of the tragedy reached Iowa, where their parents waited anxiously for word from their boys. When they learned the fate of the Juneau and the Sullivans, their grief was unimaginable. Despite their loss, Ellen Sullivan kept her end of the bargain and never asked for her sons to be taken off the ships they were on. Instead, she visited the nearest recruiting office and asked how she could help the war effort. She was told that the best way she could honor her sons was to continue supporting the troops. So she volunteered to make bandages for wounded soldiers. And when she heard that the Red Cross needed blood donors, she became one of the first people in Iowa to donate blood, setting an example for other grieving mothers across the country. As for the surviving members of the Sullivan family, they too found ways to cope with their grief. Some turned to farming, while others joined the military. But none of them ever forgot the sacrifice made by their brothers. It was the worst single loss of life in the history of Iowa, eclipsing even the Hawkeyes' infamous 1921 Rockneys 11 football team. In fact, at the time, the Hawkeyes field was known as Sullivan Brothers Field in honor of the fallen brothers. After the war ended, the Sullivan family received a telegram from the Secretary of the Navy informing them that the president had approved a special detail in their honor. On July 1, 1946, the Sullivans' remains were recovered from the bottom of the ocean and brought back to Iowa for burial. A funeral procession over 100 miles long wound its way through the countryside, passing farms where the brothers once played as kids. Every window along the route was filled with people who had come to pay their respects to the fallen heroes. When the news of the Sullivan brothers' death first broke, President Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed the nation. He spoke of their bravery and sacrifice, calling them a credit to their family, their state, and their country. But he also admitted that there was little he could do to bring them back. It was a devastating blow to the country, which was already struggling to cope with the realities of war. But the story of the Sullivan brothers didn't end there. Their deaths had a profound impact on the U.S. military, leading to major changes in policy and protocol. You see, after the sinking of the Juneau, the Navy realized that they had made a mistake by allowing the brothers to serve on the same ship. They had violated their own regulations, which stated that close relatives should not be assigned to the same vessel. But no one had followed the rules, and now 5 families were grieving the loss of their loved ones. In response to the tragedy, the Navy created a new regulation that prohibited immediate family members from serving together on a ship. This policy remained in effect until 1973, when it was finally lifted. The Navy also implemented changes to improve safety measures on board ships, such as increasing the number of lifeboats and life rafts available to crew members in case of an emergency. These changes undoubtedly saved the lives of many sailors in the years to come. In addition to these practical changes, the Navy also took steps to honor the memory of the Sullivan brothers. A destroyer escort was named in their honor, as well as a memorial at Arlington National Cemetery. The story of the Sullivan brothers has been told and retold countless times since their deaths, but it still resonates with people today. Their bravery in the face of danger, their dedication to their country, and their unbreakable bond as brothers is truly inspiring. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope can still shine through. For instance, after the war, their sister Helen Viola wrote a book called The Sullivan Brothers and Their Story, which was later adapted into a movie. The story of the Sullivan brothers has also been featured in several documentaries and TV shows, including The $6 Million Man and The Love Boat. It's a story that transcends generations, reminding us that no matter what challenges we face in life, we can overcome them if we have faith, courage, and love. Today, visitors can learn more about the Sullivan brothers and their legacy at the Sullivan Brothers State Veterans Cemetery in Iowa. It's a place of remembrance and reflection, a place where we can pay our respects to those who died on the USS Juneau and all the other brave souls who gave their lives in defense of our country. Now it's time to hear from you. Would you have done what the Sullivan brothers did and fought for your country, even knowing the risks? What do you admire most about them, their bravery, their sense of duty, or their commitment to each other? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. We would love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our future videos. And we'll see you next time.